one of the many exciting things about joining Live was being able to come here and play in front of a Spanish crowd, especially on a level of event and level of competition that I hadn't really yet enjoyed, right? I've been able to play events in Spain.
Here in the beautiful Valderrama, which some say is the European Augusta, it's so special. There's so much history here. There's so much Spanish history here.
Well, it has so much history behind. It's only a 50 years old club, but so much has happened through the years. I mean, we had the Ryder Cup, we had World Gold Championships, and now we have Live. It's
very exciting, and really, if there was ever a place to get my first win, I feel like this would be the perfect week.
I feel like when it's this wind at this golf course is so difficult that it's equally stressful no matter when or where you're playing it. But it was fun. It's always fun to be back home and be with the home crowd. It's always a joy to have this many people supporting me all day. It's so much fun.
What the heck course were you playing today?
I don't know.
It's brutal out there.
It is brutal. I don't know. I just made everything I looked at, Jerry. You have those days. I suppose this was one of those days for me, so I really shouldn't. I really enjoyed it. Every time I stood over a putt, just felt like I could make it, and you don't get days like that too often, or certainly I don't. So, yeah, I relished in it, and I managed to hit a lot of good shots as well, so it was a special day.
Welcome to hour number 2, live right here on the early line on this Wednesday on SportsGrid. 2 more hours to go up until 11 a.m. Eastern time. He is Donnie. I am Ben. We start with a big recap of a quadruple header around the WNBA yesterday. A marquee matchup of the 2 top teams in the W, and a surprise by the Sky out in Sin City. One more day of WNBA regular season action with 2 more games before the All-Star break this weekend and the Olympic break to follow. Today is July 17th. It's the last day of WNBA action until August 15th in the regular season. And we're at the break as well in Major League Baseball. Following the Midsummer Classic last night in Arlington, 2 full days off, which allows us in this quiet part of the calendar to look at the rest of what this season will hold in Major League Baseball. Your favorite games and ours here on the early line in this second hour.
Now, let me ask you this question, Ben, on the WNBA, right? I think I heard you correctly here. Tonight, which is a Wednesday, that's the last games they're going to play until the All-Star game. Is that correct?
Correct. 2 more games tonight, and then the All-Star game on Saturday.
Like, again, like you like to talk about, I should be commissioner of the WNBA, and here's why. Like, we have to plan these things out, Ben, accordingly. Now, the reason I say that is you could have actually had the WNBA All-Star game on Thursday, Ben, prime time, 8 p.m., with not a single thing going on in the sports world. You want to talk about ratings? Like, why don't we think about this stuff? I mean, I'm being honest. Like, sometimes it's like facetious, like, oh, let me just be commissioner. But why don't we think about that? Can you imagine a night to yourself, Team USA versus the other All-Stars, which includes Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese? I'm being honest. Like, when we talk about, remember when, like, COVID was ending, like, the first college football game, we were like, oh, my goodness. Like, imagine the amount of people are going to watch 2 random teams out here. Like, honestly, you want to do damage and ratings and really show up on the big stage? Boy, that is a missed opportunity.
I will never forget where I was when the Big Ten returned to action in the COVID-shortened 2020 season, watching Wisconsin play Minnesota, or not Minnesota, it was Wisconsin and Illinois. And when they first did jump around, even in a not full capacity stadium, brought a tear to my eye. I can't fault the thought there, DRS, to make it a standalone primetime game, to have every eyeball on it. I think tonight's standalone primetime game in Dallas between the Wings and the Fever is going to do some pretty big numbers as well. With that being said, I think because of the time constraints, maybe they wanted a few days off to get to Phoenix to have the All-Star festivities, but I think your point is sound regardless. Let's look back on the second to last day of the regular season before the Olympic break in 4 games, a quadruple header. We go late night first in reverse chronological order this time. The Las Vegas Aces playing host to the Chicago Sky. You heard us break down the game yesterday. Vegas and the return of the point guard, Chelsea Gray, looking like the 2-time reigning WNBA title winners. They had won 10 of their last 11 games entering yesterday. They were a 13.5-point favorite against the Chicago Sky. At least win the game, right? Wrong. The Sky go to Sin City and win outright as a 13.5-point underdog, 93-85. A total of 173.5 does go over. Kennedy Carter, the leading scorer for Chicago, she dropped in 34 points. That was a game high as well, even outdueling Asia Wilson, who was trying to do everything by herself last night. Kelsey Plum, 0 of 8 from deep. The Aces struggle mightily, and Chicago picks up a huge road win in Las Vegas.
Yeah, imagine if yesterday you're trying to make your decision on which way you want to play this game. And the only way it was like, okay, let's involve it in the double-doubles market or make it a double-double, basically saying to yourself, well, I know the Aces are going to win this game. I don't know if they're going to win by 14, but they're going to win. Now, do I take Asia Wilson over her points prop, which I think was in that 25.5, 26.5 range? She went over that. Do I just take her to get a double-double, 28 and 14? She got that. Oh, great, that's a winning bet. No, the Aces got beat outright, which is wild to think about. That's a great performance from the Sky, because it's not as if the Sky are burning up the charts right now. They were 9 and 14 coming into that game, and how well the Aces have been playing and at home to drop that game. And also, sometimes you can set that tone early. The Sky taking a 25-12 lead at the end of the first quarter should have awoken the Aces, but it really wasn't enough at that point. That's a great win for the Sky going over it. In one of those games, we're saying like 14-point spread, the Aces will crush the Sky here. We're just waiting to see if Angel Reese is going to get a double-double, which he actually did again, but another great performance by Wilson, but in a losing effort.
13 points, 10 boards for Angel Reese, a new double-double streak perhaps starting last night in Las Vegas. Asia Wilson, 28 points. Her points prop early in the day, 27 and a hook, closed at 28.5. Hope you got it when we broke it down for you. But Donnie, I mentioned how I love the player performance doubles when you look at Las Vegas, often booked, and rightfully so, as the title favorites, as a hefty favorite each and every individual game. So Asia Wilson to record a double-double, check. Asia Wilson, 25-plus points, check. And an Aces win as a 13.5-point home favorite. That's the part that failed you last night. Also, 5 blocks and 3 steals. There was a great viral clip going around of Asia Wilson with some clear frustration following the game. She has a wonderful personality. She is hilarious. Her teammates were taking pictures with Usher. Yes, R&B superstar Usher after the game. And you can read her lips where she says, these blank did not do anything all game long, and now these blank want to take photos with Usher. There is going to be some frustration. It's a sour taste in Las Vegas's mouth entering what is a month-long All-Star and Olympic break. As we shared earlier, a ton of the Aces are playing on Team USA. I'll double-check just to make sure, but I know Asia Wilson, Kelsey Plum, and Chelsea Gray are representing Team USA in the hunt for a gold medal. I think it's Jackie Young, too. That's like 4 of the 5 starters for Las Vegas. They're going to go in maybe a little bit spurned into Olympic training camp.
Yeah, by the way, Asia Wilson, Usher in the building, trying to say, get over there. These are my confessions, and starts ripping her teammate at that. So that's what you have to, live up to at this point. You got to make these things work in and out. I'm not worried about the Aces, and maybe they need this break at this point. That team is way too talented, and certainly, like, you can't equate it to the Major League Baseball season. Like, always, like, oh, well, sooner or later you're going to lose because there's so many games. That was an unexpected loss. That I thought we got those wake up calls like 2 to 3 weeks ago from the Aces, where I think Asia Wilson was crying at a post game press conference saying, like, we got to get this together, and they did. You're going to have some lapses at this point. Be happy that it's in the regular season and before a long break. They'll be just fine, though.
4 of those 5 starters last night for the Aces, as I shared. Wilson, Plum, Gray, Young, representing Team USA. Asia Wilson's going to be on their tails for that first Olympic practice later this week. Now we go to the marquee matchup yesterday as well. 2 top teams in the W. The New York Liberty, 20-4, entering yesterday. The Connecticut Sun, second best record, 18-5, but matching the best start in franchise history after nearly a 30-point blowout victory over the weekend over Phoenix. The Liberty just a 1-point favorite at home in Brooklyn last night. Minus 115 on the money line. They win by 8. They have played Connecticut 3 times this year, the first 2 in Connecticut. Last night, the first one inside the Barclays Center. New York has taken all 3, covering in all 3, 21-4. The mark now for the Liberty, 30 points from Sabrina Ionescu last night. Asia Wilson's going to win the MVP award. Ionescu has been sensational this year for the Liberty.
Best home team in the league, 12-1 overall. Now you see their record stands at 21-4, which is 2.5 games clear now of the Connecticut Sun, trying to wrap up that number 1 seed, which will give you home court advantage all the way through. We'll see how it goes out, but that's a good win. And Ionescu, as you said, 30 points. That's a great effort out of her.
The Aces still barely in front of the Liberty by just 25 cents a quarter, plus 145, plus 170 in terms of those WNBA title odds. The other 2 games of the quadruple header yesterday, Camp Day in D.C., the Mercury win big, 96-87. If you're going to bet the sticks, bet them in the first half. They led at the break. Phoenix covers as a 5-point road favorite. Seattle wins by 6, but does not cover as nearly a double-digit favorite in Los Angeles. MLB All-Star break conversation next.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Will they both make it? Yes. But it has more to do with the fact of the 3 teams that are not really good at all in Dallas, Washington, and the Sparks, and an Atlanta Dream Team without Ryan Howard that's spiraling out of control. If they can get those 2 teams, Indiana and Chicago, that's going to be a major boom for ratings.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
It is Canada. You know, Canada is one of those teams that's the darling of the tournament right now. They're still 9-1.
To win a tournament, or even to advance far into a tournament like this, you need a bit of good fortune. And it doesn't matter if you're getting the good fortune that Canada has, where they played 2 matches where they were up a man, or you had the good fortune of Argentina, who's one of the best teams in the world, who just got on the good side of the draw.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
So here we are at the Major League Baseball All-Star break. Home Run Derby in the books, the Midsummer Classic last night in Arlington as well. 2 full days off here at the All-Star break, right in the middle, perhaps, of a long 162-game season around the bigs. As I have said a few times, it's not really the midway point. It's the reset halfway of a long Major League Baseball season, but most teams have played close to 100. Everybody has played at least 95 of their 162 Major League Baseball regular season games. So we're going to have some fun here at the break. Our favorite game to make sure that you all buy or sell as well. So DRS, let's start with an American League West focus and a team that has reached the last 7 ALCSs. That is the Houston Astros. It's been one of our bits of the opening half of this year around MLB. Is the fork out? Can we stick the fork in the Houston Astros and say definitively that they are done? In early June, we were going to say that for sure. Then we put the fork away back in the drawer, and then last week, in the final week before the All-Star break, I snapped the fork. It's gone. It's done. Let's take a look at the Astros. Only a game back, a single game back of the Mariners in the American League West, 50-46 for the Stros, 4 games above 500. Houston enters the All-Star break victorious in 17 of their last 23, despite losing their final weekend series against the Texas Rangers. You see the odds associated. Now the question, buy or sell? The Astros are World Series contenders in 2024.
I'm going to sell that. And the reason I say that is, let's just say they do win the division. If there was a buy and sell on each one of those, I might buy the divisional price, but I'm going to sell the World Series price. But the question is about the World Series. So if you're being honest, you look at the FanDuel Sportsbook and you say, what are the odds for the Houston Astros to win? It's 20-1 to be World Series champions. That's not a bad price. That's not necessarily a long shot price per se, where it's like, okay, 50 and 60-1. They have a legitimate chance to win this based on the odds. But the way I look at it here, if you are a true contender, that means Donnie Rightside actually believes that you can win a World Series. I don't think they're World Series contenders. Why? Because I don't think they can win the World Series. When I look at the American League, it's still going to be the Baltimore Orioles and the New York Yankees. You still have the Guardians, the Twins, some other decent teams in there, which go now with the Houston Astros. But credit them. 3 weeks ago, we were writing their obituary, and rightfully so, because they weren't a good baseball team. They've played better baseball. They're in a division that can't get a grip on itself. Talking about you, Seattle Mariners, right now, that should have a 5, 6, 7 game lead in that division, but you let that slip away. So simple answer to that question for me is, if I don't think they can win the World Series, I can't say, Ben, that they're contenders.
Yeah, I completely agree with what your sentiment is. I do believe they are World Series contenders, but your idea being, unless you're going to cash that 20-1 ticket, you're not actually a contender. And I completely understand. I will say this, though. Houston just a game out of that top spot in the American League West. Again, victorious in 17 of their last 23 games before the All-Star break. Meanwhile, Seattle has come back down to earth in a large way. They have dropped 9 of their last 14. That's why there's only a single game separating those two teams at the top. The plus 120 price for the Astros to win the American League West might not be there come the end of this upcoming weekend when the second half officially begins around Major League Baseball. If you get a seat at the dance, you're one of the 6 teams that make it to the American League postseason. How do you not like the Astros' chances given the pedigree of where they have been? That's why I am going to buy that Houston is a true World Series contender. Houston did lose its final weekend series of the first half before the All-Star break against the Texas Rangers. Of course, the Rangers, the reigning World Series champs. That World Series matchup last year, indicative of what we see now in the expanded postseason. Both of the 6 seeds, the final wild card teams, reaching that fall classic. It was Texas, the champions of the AL, Arizona, the champions of the National League. But both DRS in danger at the break of maybe missing out on the playoffs entirely come the very next season. You can see where the odds were and where they are now for both the Rangers and the D-backs at the break. Both were favored to see the postseason before the year got underway. Now, pretty hefty plus money prices. So buy or sell, the Rangers and the D-backs will both miss the playoffs.
Yeah, it's interesting because the D-backs, we give them a lot of slack because we saw last year upsetting the Philadelphia Phillies in the NLCS going to the World Series. We expected major things to happen, and quite frankly, they haven't. But when you look at their record, they're not 5, 6, 7 games under 500. Are they going to win the West? No, they're not. But they are a game above 500 with a lot of talent on that baseball team from the starting staff and also that 1 through 9. So I sort of think we forget about the Diamondbacks as just a nice story from last year, and they're not doing much here. Now, granted, technically in the grand scheme of things, they're really not, but they're still above 500 right in the thick of that wild card race. If we flip it over to the Texas Rangers, I told you when you asked me, what about a week ago, like what's one of those teams you might want to keep an eye on because the ticket is going to be so outrageous that if they just make the playoffs, it's going to be profitable. That was the Texas Rangers just last week, Ben, at an 80-1 price at the FanDuel Sportsbook to win the World Series. You know what they're clocking in today? At a 60-1 price because most people see that division is up in the air. Somebody has to win it, and they're hovering around 500. There's way too much talent on that Rangers team to say we won a World Series last year. Now we're going to fold up. That team is starting to get healthy at the right time and can make a charge. Right. Now, when we're talking about contenders to win it all, I'm not so sure the Rangers can do that, but I'd much rather take a World Series price at 60-1 right now on the Texas Rangers, which was 80-1 last week, than a Houston Astros ticket at 20-1 because sometimes the dollars do make sense in that spot. And once again, if you're looking for the Astros to make the playoffs at 20-1, you might be able to turn that ticket into a profit if, let's just say, they win at least a series or two, which would be tough. The Texas Rangers at that 80-1 price last week, Ben, if they made the playoffs, you're automatically being able to flip that ticket over for a plus money number. So I'm a little bit higher on the Texas Rangers versus the Astros just because of the price point here. Not necessarily thinking, Ben, that either one of those teams can actually win the World Series. I just like the better price point to turn a profit there on that end of it.
Both teams playing much better baseball heading into the break. Arizona victorious in 10 of their last 15 series wins over the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Blue Jays to end it in a 4-game series split, fighting their way back to win their final 2 against the Braves. Texas has won 7 of its last 9 games, entering the All-Star break as well, but still well below 500 and needs to make up a ton of ground. We'll continue that point next on the Early Line.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Will they both make it? Yes. But it has more to do with the fact of the 3 teams that are not really good at all in Dallas, Washington, and the Sparks, and an Atlanta Dream team without Ryan Howard that's spiraling out of control. If they can get those 2 teams, Indiana and Chicago, that's going to be a major boom for ratings.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
It is Canada. You know, Canada is one of those teams that's the darling of the tournament right now. They're still 9-1.
To win a tournament, or even to advance far into a tournament like this, you need a bit of good fortune. And it doesn't matter if you're getting the good fortune that Canada has, where they played 2 matches where they were up a man, or you had the good fortune of Argentina, who's one of the best teams in the world, who just got on the good side of the draw.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Buy or sell at the Major League Baseball All-Star break continues here on this Wednesday on the early line. We were just debating if the two teams that played in the World Series a season ago would even be back in October this year, the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. Now, I would probably sell the notion that both make it to the playoffs. I might sell the notion that either make it to the postseason. Arizona, now a game above 500. Again, victorious in 10 of their last 15 before the break. Only a game out of wild card contention at this moment, and they trail the New York Mets. Not necessarily the most formidable side. Only a game and a half even behind the St. Louis Cardinals for the second of 3 National League wild card spots. It kind of factors into the conversation around Houston as well, Donnie, that when you look at the Astros and the Rangers, if they're going to have a seat at the table, if they're going to be invited to this October dance in 2024, they probably have a better chance through the American League West if Seattle continues its slide to make up ground than they do in the American League wild card race. Houston only a game out of the top spot in the AL West, but 3.5 games out of a wild card spot and even behind the Royals for wild card contention. The Rangers still 4 games below 500, 7.5 games out of a wild card spot at this time. A lot of ground to make up for the Rangers, and that's where I remain skeptical that the reigning American League pennant winners and World Series champions will even be back in the playoffs.
And that's why they're going to be so far back at this point, as you pointed out, 7.5 from the wild card. It really is just that race in the West you're worried about. And also keep in mind that, it's not like a reseeding process once you get to the end of the season. You win your division, you'll be home. Like, you don't have to worry about that wild card round going on the road and trying to do all that stuff. So that's why it's so enticing to take those longer price points, because yes, you're going to sneak into the playoffs, but typically when you sneak into the playoffs, it's the last wild card spot, the toughest hill to climb in either one of those leagues. That's not going to be the case here for the Texas Rangers and or Houston Astros or Seattle Mariners. That's what makes it a little bit more intriguing. Somebody has to win that division, which means somebody will have home field advantage in that first round.
Yeah, absolutely so. And I think that's the better spot. Houston, a game out of the AL West, but 3.5 games back of the Red Sox for that third and final American League wild card spot. The Rangers only 5 games behind Seattle, 7.5 games out of wild card contention in the American League. Now we flip our attention to the National League. The Philadelphia Phillies, who have made the NLCS each of the past 2 MLB campaigns, minus 240 for the Fightins to be the number 1 overall seed in the NL, plus 210 to win the National League pennant, second best price behind the Dodgers, second best price to win the World Series as well, plus 420 only behind LA. So buy or sell, Mr. Philly. Will the Phillies buy or sell? The Phillies are, the team to beat in the National League.
Yeah, it's pretty much a layup at this point. You take a look at the standings overall. The Phillies have a 6.5 game lead here on the Los Angeles Dodgers for that true number 1 overall seed. And also, taking a look at the Phillies in the first half compared to what you're going to get in the second half. Well, the one thing they had to weigh those waters was, oh no, that big lead for the Philadelphia Phillies might dissipate here because of all the injuries they had. Quite frankly, they got lucky. For Schwarber to hurt his groin and in the same night also have Bryce Harper get that hamstring injury, you could have been looking at a month and a half and 2 months down, depending on the severity. Both of those guys made speedy, quick get-backs here and helped the Phillies out, and also still waiting on maybe the most important piece of the team. You say, well, Donnie, would that be Zach Wheeler? Would that be Aaron Nola, Bryce Harper? No, it's your catcher back there. JT Realmuto, one of the better defensive catchers and a solid hitting catcher. He's going to be coming back to that lineup sooner than later as well. And also the Phillies front office being proactive. There's a couple things that we talk about when you're getting to the deadline. This does include the Phillies. There's teams that are looking to make the playoffs, and then the other teams are looking to sell because they're not going to make the playoffs. But the upper echelon teams going, like the Phillies, this is our chance to win a World Series. You're supposed to push your chips in. Does that mean go out and getting a Mike Trout, which I don't think is going to happen because the Phillies have a pretty solid lineup? But the Phillies aren't going to stand pat at the trade deadline and tell us, like, hey, man, look at how good we are so far. Why would we add on and mess up the quote-unquote chemistry that you'll hear coming up over the next couple of weeks? They're going to add on here. They have the best pitching staff, start to finish in the rotation, plus a great bullpen and also a great 1 through 9. How can't they be the best here so far in the National League with a legitimate chance to win the pennant and also win the World Series? I'm buying the Philadelphia Phillies.
I'm buying as well. There is little doubt in my mind the Phils will be the number one seed in the National League postseason bracket. There is little doubt in my mind that the Phils will win the National League East, ending the Braves' streak of 6 consecutive NL East divisional crowns. The only thing I think really up for debate is the Phillies versus the Dodgers at this point. The odds makers still have LA as the favorites to win the pennant at plus 175. So how do you stack up and match up at this moment? Even considering the guys on the IL for the Dodgers, I would give the pitching edge to Philadelphia, and that is key come October. Trade deadline discussions next.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Will they both make it? Yes. But it has more to do with the fact of the three teams that are not really good at all in Dallas, Washington, and the Sparks, and an Atlanta Dream Team without Ryan Howard that's spiraling out of control. If they can get those two teams, Indiana and Chicago, that's going to be a major boom for ratings.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
It is Canada. You know, Canada is one of those teams that's the darling of the tournament right now. They're still 9-1.
To win a tournament, or even to advance far into a tournament like this, you need a bit of good fortune. And it doesn't matter if you're getting the good fortune that Canada has, where they played 2 matches where they were up a man, or you had the good fortune of Argentina, who's one of the best teams in the world, who just got on the good side of the draw.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Notable dates on the Major League Baseball calendar. Here we are with 2 full off days firmly in the All-Star break. At the end of this month of July, it's the MLB trade deadline. So the All-Star break used, Donnie, not only for us content guys to speculate about what the rest of the season is going to hold, what we're keeping an eye on down the stretch, and all of those conversations in those second half narratives. But you would also think front offices and clubs around the bigs reassessing where they stand. Are they a true contender for a playoff spot, for a pennant come October? Do they need to add at the deadline to really solidify that stance? Or maybe your year's gone south. Maybe you're always thinking about what your vacations are going to look like come this winter, come where things stand in December, and you're starting to make those deals, maybe selling at the deadline. First, let's talk individuals. Notable MLB trade candidates, a few that were asked conversations about their futures this week, namely Pete Alonso, ahead of the Home Run Derby on Monday in Arlington, stressed that he wants to remain with the New York Mets in this season and beyond. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was asked about his future in Toronto, saying he wants to stay with the Blue Jays as well. Bo Bichette for a struggling Blue Jays team. Luis Robert for the Chicago White Sox, and Jazz Chisholm. If there's ever a trade for Jazz, maybe we'll hear about it from our guy, Craig Mish. A couple of the notable trade targets, DRS, at least from the offensive perspective, around MLB.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's start with Pete Alonso, right? Because there's a couple things of what you say and what you do. And I've always been a proponent for players, just make it easy on yourself, which I'm going to bring up the New York Yankees right now. Last year, Aaron Judge, in the thick of that huge debate on whether or not they're going to sign him or get back, Aaron Judge repeatedly was giving you the notion that, look, if I leave, I leave. It's not a big deal here. And I remember one of the beat reporters asked him a question like, well, what are you going to tell like the young kids or Yankees fans who absolutely adore you? And he basically was telling them, well, there'll be other players next year if I'm not here that you can like, which I'm like, this is just wild. Even if like you believe that deep down, that's not what you're supposed to say. So then I bring up Juan Soto, who again, Scott Boras as an agent, we know he wants to get paid a lot of money, but you don't get all the warm and fuzzies. Like when you get traded to New York, you're supposed to be like, this is where I always wanted to be, even if you don't believe it. Growing up as a kid, wherever I was in what country, you know what? I always wanted to be a Yankee, and I hope this is my long-term destination. Even if you don't believe it, it just sends those good vibes and gets the fans on your side. Juan Soto doing the opposite. Yeah, we'll see how it goes, right? No big deal. So then you take a look at Pete Alonso, who's actually saying the right things. Like, no, like, I know we're struggling with the Mets. I can't picture being anywhere else. I want to be a lifelong Met, which endears you to the fan base. Now, when you go out and sign Scott Boras and you want to hit the free agent market and you want to get the best price, that sort of tells a little bit of a different tale. But you see, like, the tone of those, like, no big deal, it's a business, as opposed to being like, I always wanted to be here. So Pete Alonso, for my money, is probably going to stay in New York Met because you do need a star, right? Like, Steve Cohen has more money than anybody in baseball. I understand, like, maybe building a franchise doesn't include paying Pete Alonso a ton of money because you're looking down the line a little bit more. It's hard. It's easy to do that in Kansas City and Pittsburgh, per se. You can't do that with the New York Mets. I believe he gets signed there. But the other ones that you brought up, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette of the Blue Jays, that's a big money town and a big money market. Yeah. But they're not working out at all at this point. That young core that you had put together over the past couple of years, we were expecting the fruits of that labor to start to bear at this point, saying that's one of the more fun young teams in baseball. Pay them all, keep them together for a decade, and see what happens. It just hasn't worked out. So Vladdy and Bo moving on wouldn't surprise me as much as Pete Alonso moving on from the New York Mets. Robert Jr., he's gone. Jazz Chisholm, he's gone as well. But I do think those first three guys, Alonso, Guerrero Jr., and Bichette, are interesting options there.
Very interesting options. Vladdy's seen as one of the sluggers, still from a young perspective, only 25 in all of Major League Baseball. Bo Bichette right there as well. They can say they want to remain in the six. The Blue Jays 8 games below 500. The optimistic team each of the last 2-3 off seasons entering a new year in the American League. It has not worked out. I think you are spot on, though, Donnie, for the assessment around the Amazons and the New York Mets. Because when you look at the Mets, 95 games played so far this year, 49 and 46. They're 3 games above 500. If the Mets were where the Mets were at the end of May, 9 games below 500, then I think Pete Alonso would be on the block. But you can't be Steve Cohen. And you can't have all the money and turn your back on a team that right now, if the season ended today, of course it does not, but here at the All-Star break, has a wild card spot, the third and final in the National League, and is 3 games above 500. If they trade Polar Bear Pete, a staple of this franchise, there should be a lot of angry words and things said about Steve Cohen. I do not expect Pete Alonso to be on the move. The New York Mets have been one of the stories of this Major League Baseball season. The proud franchise in June, 16-8 in the Grimace era, continuing to win baseball games. 9-5 in the month of July, victorious in 7 of their last 9 games before the All-Star break. The Mets should not be sellers at the deadline. Are they going to buy integral and important pieces? I'm not entirely sure, but they should not be sellers. Now let's go to the arms. Despite being the American League Cy Young favorite and pitching the second inning of the All-Star game last night for the AL, Tarek Skubal for Detroit, maybe on that trade block at the moment. Garrett Crochet, who has been about the only bright spot for the Chicago White Sox this year, maybe on the move. Nathan Eovaldi for the Rangers, key in their race. I don't expect the Rangers to sell, especially with Scherzer getting healthy and DeGrom maybe on his way back here in the second half. But Zach Eflin and Jack Flaherty also in consideration. You would think in terms of the armor's perspective, Donnie, if there is a buying team, Dodgers, Phillies, Yankees, Orioles, around Major League Baseball, they would be looking at this list and would be very enticed by adding some important pieces to their pitching staff.
You never know where some of these teams are going to wind up. But like when you just take a look back and forget about if you're a fan of the franchise, let's just go with Detroit here. young, dominant pitcher in Tarek Skubal. As a fan base, you say, my goodness, it's going to be so nice, Ben, to have a true number one here for the next decade in Detroit. You wait to get these players. And when you hear his name possibly at the trade deadline as a move piece, you say to yourself, what are we actually doing? Like, we're going to get a couple of prospects hoping they turn into Tarek Skubal over the next couple of years. Like, no, you're supposed to keep these young, dominant arms under control. This is what you vie for. You take a look at Garrett Crochet, the same thing. I know the White Sox aren't going anywhere, but where do you build? With a young pitching staff. That's how you start to move forward. If we're looking at Zach Eflin for the Rays, that's what the Rays do. If you have a good pitcher that somebody wants, they're more than happily handing him over so they don't have to pay him a paycheck the next year and just rebuild. They're a unique franchise, as it said. Jack Flaherty, maybe you say, okay, brought him in. It didn't work out so well. We're not that good. You move him. But I can't imagine Skubal being on the move. But here's what's so devastating. Here's why we take a look at some of these odds markets at the FanDuel Sportsbook and say, like, why are the Dodgers still ahead of the Phillies? Because the Dodgers are crazy enough to go out and get Tarek Skubal and Garrett Crochet at the deadline and be like, we have plenty of money and plenty more prospects to even make more moves. That's what we wait for. Does anybody out there think right now, they go, hey, the Dodgers got a lot of guys on IL. They're just going to wait for them to come back? Absolutely not. That's why they're the favorites. They're going to be able to turn a Cy Young caliber pitcher onto that roster and then wait for their guys to come back. And to see guys like Tarek Skubal, would it be amazing in a week and a half? Like, hey, by the way, Skubal just got traded to the Dodgers. Like, oh my goodness. Be like, yeah, that makes sense. That's exactly what they do.
I would slander Detroit endlessly, though, if it happens. Skubal minus 130 to win the American League Cy Young Award. If he gets traded to the National League, that might be the only thing holding him back. I will say this about the Tigers. Still a lot of ground to make up, as we know. 7 games out of the wild card race. The American League Central features 3 teams with a winning record in front of them. But they did win 8 of their last 11 entering the All-Star break. Garrett Crochet is going to be a name to know. He has been great this year for the White Sox. If there is a pitcher on this list that I think is going to be dealt and could make an immediate impact, it would be Crochet. Now, on the other side of the break, we'll go from the individuals to the teams that we expect to buy, the teams that we expect to sell, and those teams to monitor ahead of the Major League Baseball trade deadline. I think Donnie's point, very sound, by the way. Remember a couple of trade deadlines ago? Was it 2021, 2019? I don't even remember how long ago it was when the Dodgers acquired both Max Scherzer and Trey Turner from the Nationals. That's one of the craziest things the world has ever known. So don't put anything past those big money teams in those big markets in hopes of winning a World Series. The teams to keep an eye out on the trade deadline. Next.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Will they both make it? Yes. But it has more to do with the fact of the 3 teams that are not really good at all in Dallas, Washington, and the Sparks, and an Atlanta Dream Team without Ryan Howard that's spiraling out of control. If they can get those 2 teams, Indiana and Chicago, that's going to be a major boom for ratings.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
It is Canada. You know, Canada is one of those teams that's the darling of the tournament right now. They're still 9-1.
To win a tournament, or even to advance far into a tournament like this, you need a bit of good fortune. And it doesn't matter if you're getting the good fortune that Canada has, where they played 2 matches where they were up a man, or you had the good fortune of Argentina, who's one of the best teams in the world, who just got on the good side of the draw.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
So we looked at the individual trade candidates, those targets around Major League Baseball. Now that we look at what teams might be in the running to make a deal for them, the buyers and the sellers. We played buy or sell at the MLB All-Star break with the trade deadline just 13 days away. That's July 30th into Tuesdays. Here are some teams we expect to buy. The Phillies have the best record in all of baseball. The Orioles and the Yankees, of course, in the American League. The Dodgers always dealing at the deadline, and the Atlanta Braves. The sellers, those teams near the basement. The Angels, not maybe as bad as we expected, but Mike Trout dealing with injuries. Anthony Rendon, not happy. The A's, Mason Miller could be on that trade block. Brett Rooker as well. The Rockies, not sure what assets they have to give. The Miami Marlins and the Chicago White Sox. DRS, do you agree with the list of the 5 teams we have in the buyers component and the 5 teams we have maybe selling at the deadline?
Yeah, they make some sense. And again, the buyers always should be the Phillies, Orioles, Yankees, Dodgers, and Braves, the teams that we think are going to win the World Series. It's very rare that when you get in the encompassing of we think we can make a run, you better maximize that product on the field. And I think those teams will try to do that. We talk about the Braves. How significant will those moves be? I don't know, but I know that front office and trusting with the moves they make will help that ball club. The question is going to be also, even if you don't want to make a move, Ben, right, it's imperative that you get into the race because, number one, maybe you can steal players, and let's just say the Phillies and the Dodgers. They're both going after the same pitcher. Well, if you get them, that's a double win because then the Dodgers didn't get them. But if you don't get them, you want to drive that price up high enough that it makes it painful for the other team trying to get them to actually inquire about those said players. But if you are saying to yourself, the sellers, the Angels, they should have been sellers multiple times over the years. This might be one of the worst run franchises in a major market city that had so much talent and never won a damn thing. Like, if you're telling me you might have had, and again, Ben, when it's all said and done, 2 of the top 5 baseball players to ever lace them up, and you're not going to get anything for those 2 guys when you should have done that. Like, let's just roll reverse a year and a half ago if you say, you know what? I don't think we can afford Ohtani at this point, which is ludicrous. Should have paid him whatever he wanted to immediately and said, we'll match any price because that's good business sense to keep that guy in town. But you could have traded him for an absolute crazy haul, and you could have done the same thing with Mike Trout. You could have rebuilt that organization from top to bottom, and in 3 to 4 years starting seeing the fruits of that labor in the trades with hopefully those prospects working out. So it's no shame to see them once again here. But the questions come up like the Oakland Athletics. This is a team that we can't understand why Major League Baseball is allowing this to happen. And again, the jokes write themselves. Like, your only all-star was basically going to have to show up at Philadelphia International Airport and wait in a lounge to actually get a flight to the all-star game when the Phillies like, no, bro. Come over on the side of the locker room. We got everything 5-star. We'll take care of you. That should be an embarrassing nonetheless that you shouldn't be allowed to have happen. It should be private jets for everybody and every player that makes it to the Major League Baseball organization or All-Star game, excuse me. But moving forward with or what are they going to do over the next 3 to 4 years? Are they just going to pare this payroll down to $5, $6, $7 million if that's even possible here? It's almost unfair what's happening there. So when you get a pitcher like Mason Miller, like, hey, I can have a closer, Ben, for 15 years on my roster that's dominant. And you're like, hey, who can we flip him for? Because we'll get that next player. And in 2 years when he's good, we'll flip him again. So it's crazy what the Oakland Athletics are going to do at the deadline. Some really good talent on that team. They're just going to pare it down once again.
I think the sports documentary landscape has become a little bit saturated at this moment, but there should be one on the Angels post-2018. Shohei Ohtani's first year in MLB in Anaheim. In the 6 years they had Ohtani and Trout together, yes, injuries plaguing both in that more than half-decade run in Southern California, they never even had a winning record. They never won more than 80 games. They never even made the postseason. I don't understand it. We've already had Moneyball, so we don't need to do the same on the A's. Back to the buyers list quickly here, DRS. What I find so fascinating, I think you look at the top 4 teams, the Phils, the O's, the Yanks, and the Dodgers. I would say they're all in the running for another starting pitcher, maybe a deep reliever, a closer, somebody that can help in terms of things on the mound. I would actually say the Braves are probably more invested in a bat than any of those 4 other teams in that buyer's list.
Yeah, it probably could be that point, too. And also, if you're taking a look at the Braves, the Phillies always probably in need of another bat coming off the bench, which is certainly an important ingredient to make a postseason run with pinch hitters and also those deep arm bullpens. But when you take a look at the Phillies, if there's anything that you could say they really need, they don't actually need an extra arm in the bullpen, technically. They don't really need another starting pitcher at this point, but they would like to get an everyday center fielder. Marsh has been a great acquisition since coming over from the Angels, but he's more of a platoon guy, and you throw Rojas out there just to play great defense. But they're looking for that everyday guy that can maybe line up in either that number 2 hole or number 6 or 7 hole that can be that guy. So it'll be interesting to see. And also, again, it proves the point that you're going after those same players. Who's more than willing to give up some of the better prospects here to get those to make a run? I look for this. If you're the Braves, I don't know about going all in because I told you multiple times, I don't actually think they can win the World Series. But a team like the Phillies, that is right now the best team in baseball, those are the teams that are supposed to load up like, wow, they didn't need another starting pitcher. They got him. Oh, look at that. They didn't need another 7th inning guy. They got him. They didn't need another right fielder, but oh my goodness, it was too good to pass up. This guy should be able to help them. Those are the teams I'm looking forward to there to see what they can make some moves here at the deadline in about a week and a half.
There is need potentially, then there is desire. The Dodgers could just add Jazz Chisholm and put Mookie Betts when he returns from the IL back in center field because they feel like it. Here are now the intriguing teams, of course. What will the Mets do? We think they will probably be buyers, but definitely not sellers. The Rays, the Tigers, what will the Cubs do? I feel like they have been in that weird gray limbo area each of the last 3, 4, 5 Major League Baseball trade deadline. The Rangers, the reigning World Series champs, and I would think the Blue Jays probably skew more to sellers than maybe even being inactive at the deadline. I also ask you this, Donnie Right Side, because here's your platform for the final 45 seconds. We did not include the top team in the American League in the obvious buyers or even in the teams to monitor, the Cleveland Guardians. What might they do at the deadline to not just be the best team in the American League from a record perspective, but actually contend for the pennant?
They need a frontline starting pitcher. They really do. And say, well, Donnie, they have decent pitchers already on their roster. Not good enough to win a World Series. So for my money, if you're asking me what the Guardians will do at the deadline, I don't think very much of anything to be at this point now. I would be shocked if they went after a frontline starting pitcher or a major bat at this point. I really would be.
When you look at Cleveland, 58-37, a half-game lead over Baltimore, who is 58-38 for the best record in the American League. It's the eve of the Open Championship. We head to Scotland now.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Will they both make it? Yes. But it has more to do with the fact of the 3 teams that are not really good at all in Dallas, Washington, and the Sparks, and an Atlanta Dream Team without Ryan Howard that's spiraling out of control. If they can get those 2 teams, Indiana and Chicago, that's going to be a major boom for ratings.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
It is Canada. You know, Canada is one of those teams that's the darling of the tournament right now. They're still 9-1.
To win a tournament, or even to advance far into a tournament like this, you need a bit of good fortune. And it doesn't matter if you're getting the good fortune that Canada has, where they played 2 matches where they were up a man, or you had the good fortune of Argentina, who's one of the best teams in the world, who just got on the good side of the draw.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
It is the eve of the final major championship this year in men's golf. The Open Championship for the 152nd time starts tomorrow for us here stateside. Early in the overnight hours, we got tee times at 1:30 a.m. Eastern time on a Thursday. It is at Royal Troon, and Tiger Woods was one of the focuses yesterday in his pre-tournament press conference. We told you about the little bit of snark that Eldrick still has in reference to Colin Montgomery, Scottish professional golfer, a guy, of course, that has been very outspoken throughout his golf career. Colin Montgomery, over this past weekend, said Tiger really shouldn't be lacing him up anymore. He should consider retirement because he has lost it. We told you what Tiger's quote was yesterday. Here it is again. Quote, "As a past champion, I'm exempt until I'm 60. Colin's not. He's not a past champion, so he's not exempt. So he doesn't get the opportunity to make that decision. I do. Maybe he's not the draw that he once was on the golf course. Maybe his putter is not as sharp as it once was. But the sound bites and the snark from Eldrick, still very, very good."
Well,
yeah, they are.
The decision was very difficult for me to make. I mean, my time has been so loaded with the tour and everything we're trying to accomplish. I'm on so many different subcommittees that it just takes.
All right.
All right. Interesting decisions multiple times there. That was Tiger Woods in his discussion around his Ryder Cup captaincy, not what he was saying about Colin Montgomery. I wanted to hear from DRS. So, Donnie, why don't you get your water in? Why don't you take it away?
Yeah. Now I feel like I got a lot of energy now. It's got a little bit of a delay on that point. But here's what we're looking at with Tiger Woods. Like, there's no harm in what Tiger Woods is actually doing because, quite frankly, the fans around the world in golf always like to see Tiger Woods, whether or not he makes it through 1 round, 2 rounds, or even to the weekend. That's why they have those exemptions until you're 60 in the major tournament, because they want the superstars still to be playing golf because it's great for business at this point here. Same thing in the United States. We say, hey, Tiger, we're going to put you on the exempt list and you can play for X amount of years. It used to be at Augusta, I believe, Ben, where if you want it, you could come back and play whenever you wanted until you're 95 years old. Now, they sort of put the kibosh because the old timers were coming back, teeing off and playing 1 hole and walking off the golf course. They said, look, you got to be able to at least compete here legitimately for a round or 2 to be able to come back. But I do understand from a business standpoint, it makes sense. Now, however, the legacy for Tiger Woods is actually secure at this point. Nobody's going to argue that. But here's what sometimes you can argue against. Like Michael Jordan at the end of his career, points per game average, record, shot attempts here. They all get skewed at the end of his career and sort of can knock that down. So when you take a look and say, who's the best golfer of all time? They go, well, what was his average round in major tournaments? Tiger Woods still playing in these tournaments, not doing all that well, and sort of lowering the bar that he had set so high at this point. But that's his decision to make. That's not our decisions. If you're eligible to play and you want to play, those are the rules. You're able to play.
Tiger Woods, 48 years old now. The question being, can he ever contend for another major championship? He has 15 of them in the hunt for Jack Nicklaus's 18. It's been his career goal back in the early 2000s. You thought it would have been done by now. He probably had 30. But it's the idea of being a player versus being a spokesperson for golf. You heard a small snippet of this earlier. This was the story around Tiger Woods the last few weeks. Would he be the Ryder Cup captain for 2025? Break out the water, DRS. Here is what Woods had to say.
Well, the decision was very difficult for me to make. I mean, my time has been so loaded with the with the tour and everything we're trying to accomplish. I'm on so many different subcommittees that it just takes so much time in the day, and I'm always on calls. And I told Seth that I just didn't feel like I could do the job properly. I couldn't devote the time. I barely had enough time to do what I'm doing right now, and add in the TGL starts next year as well as the Ryder Cup, and you add all that together. And then with our negotiations with the PIF, all that concurrently going on at exactly the same time, there's only so many hours in a day. And I just didn't feel like I would be doing the captaincy or the players and Team USA justice if I was the captain with everything that I have to do.
Now we focus on Tiger Woods and his golf this week. Minus 350 to not see the weekend and miss the cut. We'll have an Open Championship preview with our guy Charlie Hume later on in hour number 3, which starts after the break here on SportsGrid.